I used to think that the limiting factor when it came to getting results from your training was informational, was educational, that the more data you had at your fingertips, the better your results would be. And I no longer think that's the case. In fact, I think in a lot of instances, a lot of people have too much information. I think they're focusing on the wrong thing. You know what I think you should start with? Not with getting knowledge, but with cultivating passion.
I'm cultivating mass. Stop saying that.
And this is something that I just don't hear talked about very much. A lot of people are talking about what, but not a lot of people are talking about why. And if you have passion, you will find a way. You'll find a way to get it done. How many times have you heard that story? I started lifting when I was 12 years old in the basement with concrete weights. I didn't know what I was doing, but I worked really hard. It was something that really mattered to me, and I saw very impressive results. I've heard that same story like a dozen times from various different people. I didn't know what I was doing when I started out, but I was obsessed with it. I worked really hard, and my results were fantastic. And this is something that just isn't talked about very much, or at all. I've literally never seen a video on YouTube Fitness about how to develop that passion, how to give yourself that motivation to make it matter to you and to keep going in the long term. Now, first of all, what is passion? Now, there's a few definitions, the first of which is a strong and barely controllable emotion. Now, this is not the main definition that I want to use for this video, but I do think it is relevant. Recently, it's in vogue to say you shouldn't be emotional about your training, you shouldn't make decisions based on impulse, you should be cold, you should be logical, you should be calculating, you should always try to make decisions based on analysis, based on science. I actually don't think that is true 100% of the time. For example, someone might say something like, if you miss a personal best, you shouldn't get angry, you should try to analyze what happened and be better in the future. I don't disagree with that second part, but if you are emotional, that is completely okay. I believe the technical term is giving a fuck about your training. Some of the best lifters I've ever seen, they get fucking furious when they miss a lift that they know they should have made. And that's okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being emotional about training, and in fact, that can enhance your results. You're not a robot. You're a human being, and it's okay to act that way. All right, definition number 2, intense sexual love. Whatever you're into, man. All right, number 3, the suffering and death of Jesus Christ. And definition number 4, an intense desire or enthusiasm for something. Now, this is the main definition. If you said you're passionate about chess or passionate about lifting weights, this is the main definition, probably. So why do some people seem to fall in love with lifting weights and keep going, whereas other people sign up on January 1st and then January 2nd, they're nowhere to be seen? And especially coming up to the new year, I think this is a very important topic. If you don't necessarily have an innate desire to do something, but you want to have that desire, how do you trick yourself and incept that desire to actually do it? First of all, stop chasing data. If your problem is motivation, if it's consistency, if it's actually just showing up and getting to the gym, your problem is not going to be found at the end of a latest meta-analysis. Conclusion, get your ass into the gym. Now, are there some people who have plenty of motivation and desire but are lacking information? Yes. If that was not the case, I would not have a job, because information ultimately is going to fine-tune your results. But passion has to come first. It just has to. There's no other way around it. And as someone in the fitness industry, I have not really struggled with motivation. But I know a lot of people do. And a lot of people who make YouTube videos about fitness for a living, they often find it hard to empathize with people who struggle to just show up. So if you are struggling with that, don't focus on education, focus on execution. In other words, killing it. Now, I think it's important to note that your body doesn't know what you know. Okay, so if you read something on PubMed or you watch a podcast, it's not like your chest is like, oh my God, he's he's really reading a lot about training. No, it's the training that is actually going to do something. The education can help to fine-tune your training and to make the training more effective, but if you're not showing up, if you're not working hard, it doesn't matter how much you know about the theory of training. Oh, he spent $800 on supplements this week. Guess I better grow. So, how do you develop passion? Well, one way would be stories. Every culture, every civilization since the dawn of time has had heroes. Not gods, heroes. You cannot become a god. You cannot relate to a god. A god cannot inspire you. You cannot become Zeus. A hero, on the other hand, is someone who goes on a journey. They're not static like a god. They develop, and you can relate to them. So why do these cultures, these civilizations have heroes? Why do we tell these stories? Is it just to keep the language going? Is it a linguistic thing? Is it just for funsies? I think it is not to develop the language. It is to develop the people. We need heroes. We need people to inspire us. And a hero is relatable. You cannot relate to the King of England because you cannot become the King of England. But you can relate to a hero. That's the entire point. I remember when I first started distance running, about 20 years ago. I was a freshman in high school, and I would read incessantly, not just about the science, about biomechanics, about how to structure a program, etc., but about people, about the Kenyan distance runners, the camps where they took hundreds of athletes, ran them into the ground, the brutal conditions, and how only a few of them survived to make the national team. And so I suggest you find some lifting heroes. Now, I used to think that someone like Eric Bugenhagen wasn't really providing much value. Like him just sort of throwing around trash cans and tackling dummies and yelling. This was not really providing anything of substance because it wasn't really informational. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe he's actually providing something far more important, getting people to actually show up to the gym. Same thing with Ronnie Coleman. Same thing with Dorian Yates. Are you going to learn a lot in terms of how to train? Maybe not. But if you learn why to train and it keeps you showing up, that's actually probably more valuable. And I think often we don't have enough hardship in our daily lives. It's just not there. The modern world is fairly soft. Maybe we have emotional struggles or financial struggles or mental struggles or spiritual struggles. But we don't really have physical struggles. And so I think sometimes reading or watching someone else's physical struggles can inspire you to greater heights. And I remember my first year or maybe two of training, I read a story about the Olympic weightlifting champion Naim Suleimanoglu, I think that's how you pronounce his name, training so hard that he had to be carried to bed at night. So his trainers, they'd scrape him up off the floor and have to carry him to bed. He's a little guy, he's only 60 kilos, so it wasn't that hard. But I realized, okay, I thought I was training hard, but actually, maybe not. Also, passion can be contagious. That sounds dirty. Nope. Cut it. Passion can also be infectious. Oh god, that's even worse. Now, it's also worth noting that passion is transmissible.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
You can also consider expanding your support circle. So if you're in the gym and someone is roughly the same strength as you can go over and say, hi, I want to get passionate with you. Do you want to get passionate with me? Let's get passionate together. I also think that if you're not excited by your training, you can change the training or you can change yourself. Changing the training is probably going to be easier. And I can't tell you how many times people have messaged me saying, yeah, I have this in my program and this in my program, but I don't really like them. Well, why are they in your program? You are making your program. You can have whatever you want, okay? If you don't like doing a movement, don't do that movement. And sometimes just watching other people train, even online, gets you fired up to train. Just watching someone train hard, makes you want to train hard. Now, one website that is really, really good for this is ditillo2.blogspot.com. Surprisingly difficult to say. Ditillo number 2 dot. I'll link in the description. And this is a really, really good website because it has good training information, generally, and it also has them in stories. So it's not just like, this exercise done this way for 3 sets of 10. No, okay, it's not that that's useless, it's just that style of putting out content is very impersonal and will never ever inspire people, okay? But this website, it is often done with stories. So it'll be more of a conversation, more of a narrative style of telling stories. So it might detail the training of a famous lifter. There are literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of articles here. It is an absolute gold mine. Definitely check it out. But it'll have the training of Arnold, the training of Steve Reeves, the training of Sergio Oliva. Literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And again, it's told in this very sort of descriptive way, not just saying, oh, this is what they did, but their emotions behind it and why they did it. And passion, again, it is contagious. And I think that if you want to go far, you have to go back. You have to know the history of whatever endeavor you are undertaking. So if you want to be a world-class chess player, you better know the history of chess. You better know why this piece moves this way. You better know the all-time greats, not just in terms of their tactics and their techniques, but who they were as people and their personalities and why they did certain things. The more you can dunk yourself in the culture of whatever activity you are doing, the further you will go. Now, is it possible that starting with the what, the informational side of things, is more important than the why, the passion side of things? Maybe in some cases you could make the argument for that if I get better results because I know what I'm doing, I will be more motivated and more interested. But I also think that in the extreme, that just doesn't work that well. I have gotten hundreds upon hundreds of DMs from people who know a lot. They know a lot about training, but in some ways that is to their detriment because it gives this kind of paralysis. They are just so caught up with what could be that they don't do anything at all. And so I would say if you're in your first year or two of lifting especially, don't focus too much on the what. And I say this as someone who puts out and makes a living putting out informational content. Focus on the why, focus on working hard, focus on enjoying it, focus on being consistent, and then later you can try to optimize things. But trying to optimize things early when you don't even know if you can stick with it is just not the best idea. And it's been said that you shouldn't compare yourself to others. I think you should. I think you should as long as it comes from the right place and it lifts you up. If you're pushing yourself down because you're comparing yourself in a negative way, that is not going to be useful. But saying that you shouldn't compare yourself to others at all, you just shouldn't have goals or strength standards or an idea of what is a reasonable progression, I think that is also equally counterproductive. I mean, if I'm squatting 3 plates or something and it feels heavy, well, I just look on the internet with John Hack squatting 8 or 9 plates or whatever he does, and suddenly it doesn't feel as heavy. I also think it's important to be selective with the content that you consume, and if you're a beginner, you might not actually want to watch someone who's super advanced, because you might not be able to relate to them at all. They're too far in their journey. You might actually want to consume the content of someone who is less developed. This is part of the reason, by the way, a lot of steroid, enhanced lifters, they might not be the best to consume in some cases because they're not relatable. I'll give you an example. Right now I am cutting. I started a couple weeks ago. I'm down to like 97, 98 kilos. And I'm not watching content of people who are bulking, or at least I'm not going out of my way to do that. I'm watching content of people who got in contest condition, of natural bodybuilders, of people who got diced, okay? Because that is giving me that feeling of why not me? Why not me? If they did it, I can do it too. And that's the mentality that you want to have. If someone else can do it, why the fuck not you? Anyway, I know this has been a little bit of a different video. It's a topic that I haven't discussed before and honestly is not talked about very much at all, and I think is overlooked. We talk a lot about the what, but not a lot about the why. Anyway, for more about the what, which still does matter, especially past the first year or two of training, once you've cultivated all that passion of yours, check out my books. They are going to be very, very helpful. Thank you so much for the support, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.